All right, I have on the line Luke Slip. So Luke has some questions, and Paul, everyone in the chat, you might be able to fill us in on this. But he has some questions about the impeachment process with Trump. So let's go ahead and get this started, Luke. Let's ask some questions and see if we can get this figured out here, all right?
All right.
Whenever you're ready.
All right. So my question was, back when Nixon was impeached, there was a law put in place that he was able to get, because it wasn't a true impeachment, it was null and void. There was a law passed that there was 3.5 years or less terms available because his impeachment wasn't right. And I don't have the words right in front of me. But if the Senate impeaches Trump and the House impeaches Trump and the Senate doesn't, it's supposed to squash his term now. Does it add 3.5 years to his existing term, or does he run 2 more times?
Okay, so you guys...
And I don't have enough... Yeah.
So you guys understand what he's asking is if... Still no screen, Paul Revere saying. What he's asking is since Trump's been impeached in the House, if he goes to the Senate, will it void a term and he be able to run for another term as president? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it reads it the way you read it. It's all lawyer writing, but it's either he can run 2 more times or it adds 3.5 years or less to his existing term, and then he's able to rerun again.
Let's see. I'm going to see what I can pull up here.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, actually.
Do you remember where you looked up? I've heard this before. I've heard this this question asked before. All right, so I'm pulling this up from Politico, and it's asking the same question. So let's go through this article and see what it says.
A lot of people say that he can run 2 more times, but realistically, the law goes back to Nixon, and it was like granted 3.5 years. And the way I read it, and I may not understand it, does he get 3.5 years added on to this term and then is allowed to rerun? And I don't have time I work 7 days a week, so I don't have time to sit and research and dig and all that.
So this is from what is this? PolitiFact, and it's at the Poynter Institute winner of the Pulitzer Prize. So they have an article about this. It says, could Donald Trump be impeached, removed, and run for re-election? So under here it says, could President Donald Trump be impeached, removed from office, and run again for president in 2020? A reader recently asked us this question, and we were intrigued. So the short answer we found is that Trump probably could run again as long as the Senate didn't decide to forbid it, but it wouldn't be easy. So this is what the Constitution says. The Constitution is quite clear about the Senate can do when presented with a House-approved impeachment in Article 1, Section 3, Clause 7. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. In other words, the Senate can vote to remove the president and to disqualify him or her from holding future offices. So it goes on to say, could the Senate choose what punishment to apply? And scholars suggest that the Senate has the power to support removal from office without barring them from holding office in the future. It is up to the Senate to make that decision. Let's see. How could Trump go about running again for president after being removed from office? So let's imagine.
No, what I'm saying is, if he wasn't removed.
Not, Kostick said that's okay, Paul says he can run as vice president and just use Pence as a front man, run the show from behind the scenes. I don't think because they've wasted a lot of his time. I've heard the question asked, could he, since they've wasted so much time and basically screwed him out of a year of his presidency, would he gain another year of his presidency even after the impeachment in the House, but not be impeached in the Senate? I don't think that is a possibility.
Well, no, you got to dig all the way back to Nixon when he was impeached. The Supreme Court, I believe it was, passed a law that he could get 3.5 because his impeachment was reversed, but he never served it. So there's a weird law that was never struck down about 3.5 years or less if he's impeached in one branch and not impeached in the other. It squashes his presidency now, and I'm confused about, and that's why I'm asking you, because you have more time to research. Does it add 3.5 years or less to his term now, or is he able to run 2 more times? You have to dig for this because you know how laws are written.
Right. Oh man, this is a good question.
And I'm pulling this up because of the places that I'm around and the people I know. I'm being told he can run 2 more times. If he's impeached by Nancy Pelosi and not by us, then it squashes his term and he can run 2 more times. But if you go all the way back to the Nixon law, it says he can run 3.5 more years and then rerun.
This is interesting.
That's where the confusion is.
Yeah, I'm trying to find this because I've heard this question asked before, and I can't remember who covered this.
And whoever said the deal about becoming vice president and then Pence could pardon him or step down and him step back up and be the president, but that's true too. But when you go back to when Nixon was impeached, there was a law that was never removed, and they still owe like 3.5 years or less. And I'm not a lawyer.
All right, so here's I'm pulling up these ones from PolitiFact. This says, no, Donald Trump could not seek a third term if impeachment trial failed. The 22nd Amendment to the Constitution prohibits presidents from being elected to office more than twice.
But that's going back to the Constitution, not about a law that was passed by the Supreme Court over Nixon.
Hey, Paul, are you happen to be looking this up too, or?
Well, okay. I can't because I'm reading and talking to you.
Paul says he won't get impeached. He declared a national emergency with the first 90 days, and you've been under martial law ever since. So Trump has not. Kosick said, I've heard that law too, but not sure. Let's try to find this law.
It has to do with 3.5 years owed back to Nixon. And the other stuff that people are saying, I mean, those are true statements, and we are still going to do what we're going to do overseas, but it's just like when I told you there were casualties on that base.
And then it came out that there was
and then now it came out there was.
Yep. I heard that too in the news recently.
Well, you remember that day I told you that there were casualties, but they're not going to report them until their families were known about and all that?
Yeah. Yep, I remember that. If and then it came out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, that that there was 11 injured on the base.
Yeah. And that was what, a week later after I told you?
Yep. Okay, so this is December 16th, 2019, and I think I'm on the right track here. Can Supreme Court extend Trump's term by 3 years? So is that what that's pretty much what we're trying to find out here, right? This is a Supreme Court. So there's one here. It says messages on social media claim that the U.S. Supreme Court can extend President Trump's term by up to 3 years if he's acquitted in the Senate. It says false on this. It says President Donald Trump is, at the time writing, facing an ongoing impeachment trial, but lower chamber of Congress, the U.S. Representatives. Impeachment is the first of two-step process to remove the president. If he's impeached in the case, is moved to the upper chamber of Congress, the Senate, where they will vote on whether to convict, as such, remove the president. Impeachment alone does not mean a president will be removed, as highlighted by President Bill Clinton being impeached but not removed since the Senate voted to acquit him. And most political analysis suggests President Trump will also be acquitted if he's indeed impeached. So let's go down here and see what it says. It says a rumor has spread online claiming that if Trump is acquitted by the Senate, then the Supreme Court can move to extend his term limit by 3 years. Currently, presidents can only be elected to 2 to 4 year terms. Such rumors seem to have been started by an article that claims that this is possible because of a relic law passed during the Nixon presidency by the Republican Congress that allows presidential term to be extended in the event of Senate acquittal, which was supposed to have expired but never was because Nixon resigned before the impeachment process could reach the Senate. The article making this claim was originally posted on the site dailyworldupdate.us and reads in part. So let me zoom in for the people that are watching this. It says, there's a little-known precedent on the books that Democrats are trying desperately to have removed before the impeachment trial of President Trump begins. In 1974, as Nixon faced impeachment, the Republican Congress passed a law that would allow his terms to be extended if he was acquitted. The law was specific to Nixon and was set to expire in 5 years, but Nixon resigned. The removal of the law, therefore, never happened. It is all nonsense. No such law exists, and many of the people quoted in the article are not real, including legal analyst Art Tubles, an anagram for Busta Troll, the pen name of the author. The website dailyworldupdate.us is a spoof news website that labels its content as satire. However, many readers have not seen the label, and other websites have copied the content and not included a disclaimer. Goes on to say dailyworldupdate.us is a subsidiary of the America's Last Line of Defense network of parody, satire, and tomfoolery. So that's what it's saying here. The rumor bears similarity to another baseless claim that purported a president's first term is nullified if he's impeached but acquitted in the first term. That's the one that I heard about originally. Was the rumor that it's a base that his first term is nullified if he's impeached but acquitted. That's what I heard. I didn't hear the Nixon one though.
Yeah, well, like I said, I work 7 days a week, so, and I can only read what I can read, and you can only believe what you read halfway on the internet. So that was my question. I mean, it seems you have more time to really dig if you get interested and find it.
So Heather Daniels over here, she's a Fugel fan also. She said everything she's found about this is false. Paul Revere says he did a secret executive order just to declassify. So, yeah, from what this article says, this comes from a website called that'snonsense.com, which, I mean, it has a donkey's head on it. I mean, I'm sure everybody's watching is like, well, this is probably nonsense too. But it's a fact check website for politics. I'm going to look into this further and see.
Yeah, with all the Google letting the deep learning AI take over its control, I mean, you don't know what the hell to believe or what not to believe.
Exactly, and that's why, in particularly on the way I do news, is I get it from the mainstream, I get it from the underground, and then I take the two and I collide them together and find a center, and I show people both sides so that they can make up their own mind.
And that's the way you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, it's like that old guy that used to do the news. I forgot, it's Walter Cronkite or something like that. Just read the news and let people just
Cronkite.
yeah. And just let people decide. What I also don't do on here is try to speculate on something that's way out there. I just let people decide. I'm not here to implant ideology in anybody's head. But Heather Daniels said it was a good question. She said it was a good question. I was curious about this too because I think my mother-in-law asked me about this. So it was a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. So now, I mean, at least we know.
Well, exactly.
And you're from the great state of Texas, right?
I'm from Sherman, Texas.
My mother is from Corpus Christi. My grandfather was a police officer in McAllen.
Well, actually, I was born in Wichita Falls.
All right. Long live the Alamo, though, for reals. Heather said it was a good question. Adam Augustine said discernment from the best source I have. See what his thing here said real quick. Because Adam is pretty quick at finding stuff also. Heather Daniels said, "Yay, Texas." We got a bunch of Texas fans in here.
Where are you located in Oklahoma?
I'm located northeast Oklahoma. So, yeah, I'm
Lake Eufaula?
No, I'm almost to Kansas.
Oh shoot!
Almost to Kansas. I
lived up there where the pig festivals are.
Where the what?
Pig festivals.
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way. I'm on a mountain. If you can figure out what mountain I'm on in Oklahoma, then you can pretty much figure out where I'm at. And
northeast, that'd be Ozarks.
People are like, mountain in Oklahoma. Yes, mountain in Oklahoma.
Yeah, not the Wichita Mountains, but that'd be like the Ozarks if you're northeast.
The county I'm in is actually a Indian reservation.
Oh, okay.
Let's see what Adam's got here. I appreciate the call too. Because Adam's pretty quick at finding stuff when it comes to this. So Paul. So let's see.
Well, I'm pretty quick too. I was just texting, you know.
June 27th. It's the fight before the fight. Sponsored by
Adam, what is this? The last
Pepsi.
link is a video about Trump. Okay.
I wonder what Trump's game is this time. Trump's got a new game. Trump's got a new deal. What's your game, Donald?
We'll save that. But I think that's I hope that answers your question.
Oh no, I wanted you. It didn't answer nothing. I just wanted you. You have more time to dig and dig and dig and dig, and not just look at
What
websites, Snopes, or anything like that. Because like I said,
go ahead.
What
go ahead.
you read on the internet and what you hear on the internet sometimes ain't true. Like I told you that there were injuries on the base,
Mm-hmm.
and now it came out 2 weeks later, so or a week later.
I'll definitely look into it more. It gives me something to research on. And maybe I'll even do a video about it once I compile the information.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you're going to have to bounce clause back to clause, and this is going to refer back to 5546, blah, blah, blah.
I'll reach
You know
out.
how you read law.
Yeah, and I have some friends that are lawyers and paralegals in New York. I'll reach out to them and see if they know anything about this also.
I was just curious. I mean, I really didn't believe it, but when you think of conspiracy theories or whatever, Donald Trump, he endorsed Nancy Pelosi, and then Nancy Pelosi attacks him, and she's pushing impeachment. If they impeach him and it doesn't go through, what are the actual ramifications of it? Is it just, hey, half of us are pissed and half of us aren't? I mean,
I honestly don't think that the Senate is gonna impeach him. I think that he'll get 4 more years. I think after this 4 years, everyone better put their head between their legs and kiss their ass goodbye, because once they get him out of office, we will probably never see another president that's going to try to support the American people. That's what I think.
Well, it's going to go. You think it's going to go way, 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 way far left?
Yes, and I'm saying that just because if you pay attention to the news with everything they're rolling out with the robots, the real ID is going everywhere now. The ID 2020 Alliance is going up in Austin, Texas. As a matter of fact, yeah, in Austin, Texas, the ID 2020 Alliance, which is funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, Gavi, who is Big Pharma, is involved in it, and Microsoft Technology is involved in implementing that, and they're kidnapping people in Austin, Texas, and South Florida. So they're testing the RFID chips on the homeless people. They're disappearing the homeless people. They're rolling out technology everywhere. Police are having
That's been done in Dallas.
Yeah, they're doing it everywhere. It's already moved all the way to South Florida. I think it's some places up in the East Coast they're doing it. So
basically what you're saying, not to cut you off, is something that I've been saying for a while because nobody pays attention to the deep learning AI that Google let take control over its cooling systems completely, which was like 40% of, well, equal to all air traffic, and it dropped their emission systems 40%. And then Google let them take complete control over, and they're trying to sell it to England to reduce their energy grid cost. So, yeah, deep learning AI is there. It's coming in, and they're watching all of us.
Exactly. Well,
so
in the 2020 or the 2030 Agenda 2030, It's basically smart cities, surveilled by artificial intelligence and ran by quantum computing. So,
Well, Dubai's already doing that.
yes. And also, if people don't know this, in South Africa, Xi Jinping has taken over portions of South Africa where he's putting in factories, and he's also building smart cities around those factories. The guy from Toyota, I just read an article the other day, they're doing a smart city over in Japan. They're also coming out with flying taxis over there. So we're headed there very fast. That's what I mean by the time that we get from Trump out of office, whether he's impeached, which I don't think he will be, but probably the next 4 years after that, if they get a Democratic Socialist in there, everything he has done is going to be undone. They're never going to let another person like him ever run again or get into office again, because the people behind the curtain are the ones that actually run the government. Trump fights against the career politicians that have been there before him and that will be there after him. They have a nefarious agenda. They want total control in a technocracy, in a dystopia that they sell to you as a utopia, but it's a nightmare. So yeah, you can look forward to artificial intelligence tracking with a real ID. I read the article about the autonomous robots that they can put at bus stations, restaurants, movie theaters, hotels. If you think you're going off the grid and they post these robots up, these robots scan everything that you do. They also can judge by your emotion. They can put all that stuff into a database along with your biometric data, your metadata that they gather off your cell phone, and you're screwed. You're in the beast system, and there's no getting away from it. And if you take that chip, you're really screwed.
Well, you're right. And in Dubai, which has been the experimental place because of all the money, they already have trash can robots that do facial recognition. Have police officers flying on drones.
Yes.
I mean, and those drones can be manned without police officers. So, yeah, I mean, all that's coming. And if you really think about it and they utilized it properly, where AI technology is going to take over the manufacturing process and make life easier on people, where does that go?
Well, and what I read tonight, it was the article from Zero Hedge where it talked about a certain percentage of all the jobs are going to be taken by 2021. So they're already telling you ahead of time these robots are going to be taking over your jobs. Let's see if I can find that real quick. This article is called "The Robots Are Coming and There's Nothing You Can Do." Or no, the robots are coming and they're taking. Let me pull this up for everybody. They're taking over everything. So autonomous delivery of your pizza in California. This article says the robots are coming and they're going to take over millions of jobs. So they're already warning you about it. They've reached quantum supremacy. They're artificial intelligence and everything. Considering facial recognition software in your Ring doorbells. We all already know they're collecting your biometric data out of your cell phone. So they've been collecting the data for years, and then what they're going to do, so like Walmart, you probably heard this, Walmart is hiring robots to fill orders now. So it doesn't matter if you deliver pizza, if you work in a factory, if you do anything that a robot can do better than you, it doesn't matter. They're going to replace us all with robots.
Hey, I don't know if you've ever done this, and you might think this is interesting. Go look up Walmart patents and read the patents that Walmart owns. They have patents on bees pollinating plants. It's crazy.
They also have a deal with the U.S. military. If martial law ever goes into effect, then that'll be your PX.
Exactly.
Will be your local Walmart. A lot of people don't know that either.
That's why the garden center became a cage. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of interesting stuff out there to read. If you go to patents where people don't believe anything, if you go and look at patents that businesses own and you read the patents, you can see that it's not a lie. They own the patent to do this. And Walmart, believe it or not, is way out there on their patents.
I'm going to look into those two. I haven't read those in a long time, but I know about the them being the PX for martial law because Walmart has a contract with the military for them to be a PX. So if you've ever been on military base, and Luke can tell you this also, Walmart is set up exactly like a PX. They look almost identical to each other.
Yeah. But I mean, there's all kinds of stuff way out there. The one thing I've been married 3 times. I've been with my wife, this one, for 16 years, and I've told her from the get-go that anything science fiction, almost, if you watched it science fictionally, it is to introduce new coming technology that they already have. So think about all the way back to any science fiction robot show or all kinds of things. Holographs, talking on your wrist. I mean, all the stuff you see science fictionally comes to pass.
Yep. It's 1984. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know this, Amazon has removed the book 1984 from their sales. You can no longer buy it anymore. So here's the thing. If that book was not a premonition of what was to come, why would they suppress that information? You know what I mean? Because we're living in it right now.
Exactly. Well, you know, when I was young, I thought in 2020 cars were going to be flying, but I mean, in 2000, sorry. Year 2000 would be flying in cars, but they suppressed that technology.
Oh, well, I'll bring it up right here. So what he's just said is they suppressed technology on flying cars, and this article came out yesterday. It says Toyota invests $349 million in flying taxi startup with Joby Aviation. And they're also going to be running Uber as well. So it's all coming out. So you call a stranger on the phone, on Uber. So a stranger comes and picks you up in a death trap flying of a car and takes you to buy some GMO food from McDonald's. So you're gonna die. You're gonna die either way, whether it's kidnapped from a stranger that picks you up, the GMO food you're eating, or crashing in a flying taxi startup made by Toyota and Joby Aviation. So it's coming.
Yeah, and so check this out, because I don't have much longer to go. The chip that you can have implanted in your children when they're born or whatever.
The Halo device.
5G, yeah, the 5G, from what I read, is the same frequency that accesses the chip.
If you guys, so what he's talking about, and people don't know about this, a lot of people don't know that this exists either. He's bringing up a lot of good points here. There's a device, it's called the Halo device, and it came out, when would you say this came out, Luke? Was it, it was the early 2000s, I think.
Yeah. Or where you could opt to have your child chipped in case they were kidnapped or whatever. But the 5G is supposed to be able to access that chip and power it up with frequency. And whatever that chip's able to do, who knows? But I know, and it's not fear porn or nothing. It's just something that is going to happen eventually.
So here's they have this version of it here. I'm showing them pictures on the thing. So they have this version, but this is a new thing. It was, I did a whole thing on the history of RFID and stuff. So they have this one, and it's one that goes around their leg. Obviously, it can be removed, right? So this is called the Halo, and a lot of people don't know that this exists. But this is what he's referring to as far as the chip goes that you can put into your children's, and look where it goes. So the chip in the Book of Revelation is on the hand or in the forehead. The Halos device is an infant protection system of an RFID chip that they can implant along the hairline of your children, like he's saying, in case you're kidnapped. Your kid is kidnapped. Are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. My computer said something funny. But that is the Halos device right there. And a lot of people don't know that exists.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that exist that are tested and all that. But so, I mean, what do you hold faith into? What do you believe in? What do you know that's coming? Well, we know that population's going to grow. Food shortages are going to happen. But the main thing that I think that everybody ought to watch, which I've been involved with weather my entire life, is natural phenomenon. I mean, we have asteroids supposedly getting closer, which they never was. We have volcanoes going off. We have earthquakes. We have areas of the planet that are getting storms that they've never had or never recorded. So we don't have to worry about World War, Donald Trump, or anything like that. What I really think that we have to worry about is the weather.
But even the weather,
I don't know how much
even the weather can be manipulated.
Well, yeah, because, you can look up a hell cannon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever done that. They've created a cannon that when a thunderstorm comes over, they use sound waves and blow the storm apart so it don't hail over major manufacturers of cars.
Yep.
There's a lawsuit in Mexico going over it.
Let me see if I can pull a picture up of this thing real quick.
But I've been watching for a long time. You know what a solar minimum and a solar maximum is?
Yes.
Okay, for years there was a woman that she's a college professor. They created a database. They put in solar minimum, solar maximum, solar activity, and they went back all the way through dates and lined it up. And she said between 2020 and 2050, there's going to be a solar maximum event that could cause a mini ice age. And she started saying that governments ought to start figuring out how to grow food and raise cattle indoors. Well, that was 5 years ago, I think, when I read it the first time. As it's progressed, more and more people are getting on board. So between 2020 and 2050, there could be a small ice age, not an extinction ice age, but an ice age that could affect the world, and that could change. Everybody knows that. But if you look a few weeks ago, the radiation around the planet was really high because there was no sunspots. So even if you were cold, the sun was burning your skin. And that all has to play. The planet has a self-defense mechanism. If volcanoes erupt, there's gases that come out of them that block the radiation. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, and if that volcano goes off over there also.
And I'm probably babbling because I'm tired and I need to get off here.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.